So when it comes to text, you always have to have a font. SFML will require you to specify a font whenever you're drawing text. And today we're going to be learning about how to manipulate strings to be able to draw whatever string we want to on the screen. Because fonts are required, you can actually think of the relationship between fonts and text just like how textures and sprites work. A texture in SFML is the file that's loaded off disk. You usually want to load it once and then assign it to the various sprites that you draw. A font is the same way. A font is something that you want to load once, usually when you start up your game, and then you want to set that font anytime you're drawing text. You rarely want to actually load multiple fonts more than once. You want to load all your fonts up front. And so in the SF namespace, there is a font type. And a font is actually loaded very similarly to how you load a texture. There's a load from file function on here. And this is all in the tutorial for SFML. Right here. And what it asks you to do is you can set up an if statement here to say if you couldn't load something from a file, you can say, hey, standard CL, make sure you include IL stream. Like so. And this is just the path to the font. I happen to have put all the fonts in a folder called fonts. This one here that I downloaded is called adrip1. So I'm going to specify fonts adrip1.ttf here. Once you've properly loaded a font, now we can draw our very first one, which is just going to be SF text, my text I'm going to call it. And this is just like a sprite where instead of setting a texture though, we're going to set a font. And the font is just going to be the font that we loaded earlier. Okay, so you're going to call a function called setFont on my font. This is all in the tutorial here on how to actually draw it here. And then the missing part is what you actually want to show on screen. So there's a function called setText or setString. And this is going to be what you actually want it to draw. I'm going to show you guys first how to draw what are called static strings, which are strings that don't change. And then, in order for us to do score in Pong, we're going to need to draw dynamic strings, which change their characters based on some other variable in your program. So, for instance, score, it changes from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3. I'm also going to have you guys write an FPS counter in the upper left corner of your screen for your game, because they're super easy to do, and it helps you give you an idea for what your FPS is like in your game. In this case here, I'm just going to type hello world. I don't know, you can kind of write whatever you want to. SDVA203. Once you call setString, then you can actually draw just like it's a rectangle or anything like that. If you don't touch anything else, it'll draw with a character size of 30 in the upper left corner in white with that font, if everything works correctly. You guys should all make sure that this is working before you move on to the lab here. And what I want you guys to do is I want you to do the lab up to number 5. And we're going to do number 5. I'm going to show you guys a lecture on how to do number 5. But I want you guys to do 1 through 4 to start, which is drawing hello world. And I want you to make the keyboard rotate this text. So up and down will rotate, or you can do left and right. I want you to rotate it at 360 degrees per second. All right? So it's very easy. Fonts are very simple. However, make sure that you load the font and assign the font to your text correctly, and that you have something drawing on the screen. All right? And if you need to know how to change the size, right here, this thing tells you how to change the size. And if you need to position it, you can always position it just like a rectangle. So there's a set position you can do on text as well. and you should get something like this drawing on screen. If you don't have something drawing on screen yet, let me know and I'll come around and I'll help you, but you should all have something like this, like with the font of your choice drawing.